Wow, this really just starts streaming. Okay. Long time no see. I figured I'd get a stream in here. The reason for this, I haven't really been streaming my Apex matches live on the weekends. Because the last few times I've tried to do that, as entertaining as I find it, it's actually really distracting and always results in me losing lots of games because I'm trying to focus on the chat at the same time, or I just try to talk through all my moves while I'm doing stuff. And that always, if you've seen my Apex streams before, results in the old backup time debuff. So the giant flashing numbers on the screen, super stressful. So I haven't been live streaming much this season, partly because I want to actually focus on my matches. And I've had a little bit more success this way. But I don't want you all to miss out on PvP stuff either. So I figured during the week, like on a Thursday or Friday, I could just go over some of the matches that I had from the weekend previous. And that also lets me kind of self-filter out some of the really boring matches. So I think that's what we will do this evening, is go through some of my matches from last weekend, and we'll just kind of let them play and see what's going on. While I'm doing my pre-stream pour and getting my beverage ready, let's get an SSR from this map event. This week we're still on the watermelon, the carbonated, sparkling watermelon water. Just inhaling carbon. Alright, there we go. All the bubbles went up my nose. So, probably gonna get... to be honest, probably gonna get a Night Bloom from this map event. And then we'll hop over into the Apex Arena and see how we did. I actually got a lot of games in last weekend. And I won some and I lost some. I'm not quite Lang yet, although I made it most of the way through Gold 1. So hopefully this weekend we'll make a little bit more progress and hit Langrisser rank. So let me know in the chat how y'all's Apex seasons have been going so far. I may very well have fought a couple of you last weekend. No SSR, alas. Okay, one thing I'm going to do, just so I don't spoil the results, since watching... One of the things I don't like about watching replays is that you always know in advance who won the match, so there's not much suspense. So let's see if I can just get... There it is. My no peeking screen. Appropriately enough. And I'll go into the Apex Arena and go into my battle report. I'm just going to find matches from last Sunday, since that's the day that I really sat down and focused on fighting. And actually, before I do this, I'm just going to very quickly make sure my clan has the link to my stream, since I know they wanted to see how I was doing. Last week I didn't fight anyone from my guild. The week before I did end up fighting a couple matches against people from my guild. And they didn't go well for me. But that's alright. If I have to lose, I might as well give points to someone who I'm supporting through teamwork. Alright, everyone. Yeah, no, Woojin, this is neither Scrims nor the Summit der Langrisser. I'm going to do replays of my matches from last weekend. Actual matches are very stressful and distracting, so I always end up feeling bad during the match and sometimes losing. So we're going to stick with replays this season and see how that treats us. I'm just going to load into a ban pick here. Okay, so this should not spoiler the winner of this match now. So we can get this cleared off the screen and get started. So the first match is against Vicelord, who is a very popular main quarter. Everyone knows Vicelord in the Discord world. And he's got an interesting looking box here with lots of AoE rush options. He's got Vincent, he's got Himiko, he's got Clotaire, Ares, Leon, interesting, Autocrato, interesting, and Alpha, who I haven't seen yet this season, so congrats, Vice, you're the first Alpha that I ran into. And I do kind of remember how she worked, but that's kind of a big question mark for me going into this, so we will just see. I'll kind of scroll through this ban pick. The most important part of ban pick is how it ends. So I do make sure that I get a tank right away. And Vice gets Vincent. The first pick, Rosenseal, I thought was fairly interesting for this team that looks like it wants to rush. And getting third pick, Alpha here. So we are going to get to see Alpha in action. Getting my Elwyn out mainly for zoning, more so than anything. I know Alpha is most likely going to be double Lancer, so not sure how useful Elwyn is going to be against that. Yeah, I'm thinking the most dope of starting to build up my auto on the side with my Wheels of Fate or whatnot. But I agree, he's definitely going to be one of those characters who has lots of potential, who can do a couple different things in your box, so pretty exciting. We'll get to see him in action in this game as well. Alright, let's hop in and see how this one goes. So I'm player 2. I do have a tank, I do have a couple of healers, and I also have a glory buffed assassin. So we do have double lancers on this. She's got frontal assault, so she does have lots of single target potential as well. Bulky auto with the Lava Titans. Lava Titans are just like big hit point sinks. And then of course the Vincent. So I know auto can be quite rangy, and I'm still not 100% sure what she's going to be able to bring to the table, so my goal for the start of this match is just to kind of get set up and weather the storm that I'm sure that Vincent and potentially auto are going to bring. So I'll just let this play out and see how that works out for me. Now I'm positioning Werner so it looks like I could be going into defensive stance, but against this kind of team there's really no reason to go into defensive stance with him, so he's of course in attack stance. And my rush there was mainly just to threaten a little bit more in the center, since I'm not sure how far up Vice wants to move on this turn. I'm still not able to kill anyone from here, but I just was hoping it would make him kind of think twice about how far to commit. Although usually with Vincent, you're planning on committing all the way, regardless. So Tiaris does give this Vincent a nice little cozy nest to come in and hit my team. And that's not too bad on damage. Now, I can afford to be patient here and just heal back up. I do still have Florentia waiting in the wings in case I need to heal again this turn. And usually, your course of action for dealing with Vincent, who charges in like that, is just not to kill him right away. After he kind of blows his big moves, you don't really need to deal with that explosion, but for me, I figure now is as good a time as any. Before the rest of Vice's team gets here, I might as well just suck the damage and get Vincent off the table. So I'm able to kind of greedily kill Vincent here with a normal attack. We're pretty hurt. And Otto is getting that act again, but I do have enough time just to heal up with Flow before Otto has a chance to do anything. Sure enough, he's able to pop in and hit pretty much my whole team with this, which scrambles us, and also means we can only move in straight lines. Fortunately, moving only in straight lines is good enough for Elwyn with his charge. I'm able to get away from the rest of my team and get one of these healers down. So that is going to cost both Elwyn's lives, but it did cause Vice to take a couple steps back, which gave me a little bit of room to breathe, so I think that was a decent trade. And we're still dealing with our mobility issues caused by Otto on the previous turn, so we're just kind of regrouping back here. Now, I wasn't sure if this was going to kill Otto, but the double attack is OP, especially with my troop advantage there against his Lava Titans. Now, Werner dead, but that does leave me with a good tank, a couple healers against his Alpha, and one healer. This is kind of going to end up being a scrambly endgame. We'll see what Alpha can do here. She just catches an act again, so she's about to make her move. I mainly did that to splash a little bit more damage at her, so she'd be a little bit more weakened when she came in. Alright, let's get rid of some of these spammers, too. How do we do that on YouTube? So at this point in the game, I'm essentially weathering Alpha and trying to slowly make my way into the middle, just in case it's going to end up being one of those kinds of games. I'm probably not going to be able to block Vice out of the center, but I probably am going to be able to outlast him. So that Vice didn't want to protract this match any more than it was already, so he bails, and that was one win for Kong. So good game, Vice. Thanks for that one. I'll put up the old no peeking screen again when I go back, so we don't spoil some more matches, and I'm just going to very quickly delete some of these. Oh, I can't really report my restream bot as a spammer. But can I just delete that one message? No sense in spending too much time screwing around with that. Alright, let's go to the next game. Alright. Load up the old band pick. Oops, I just totally skipped it. Daniel, yo, welcome to the stream. Don't mind the giant Mariandel face. I'm just loading up a match here. I don't want to spoil the results. Alright, pause this time instead of skip. Come on, Kong, get it together. Get it together! Alright, here we go. This is a game against Quaren Taylor. On the desert map. And they're getting first pick Kyra. I, of course, got the old Hilda and Rosenseal 1-2 combo. My box is kind of odd and uncomfortable because I always do want to have a tank and a healer, but it means I can't pick a DPS right away, usually. Unless I want to be really risky and risk playing without a tank or without a healer. So, which sometimes I do, but I have enough decent DPS here that I can usually get someone third pick that will help. So he's going full anti-AoE here. And I've pretty much got a full coward box with a couple tanks, a couple healers, and just T-Jess. But with Quaren having no Christiane, like with tanking with just Leaden and Jugler, I feel okay about T-Jess being my only DPS. And I'm not too worried about Rosie with having a couple of decent tanks and a couple healers here. So the threats are going to be if Kyra can kill T-Jess through what I have. Or maybe, I guess, Jugler or Leaden locking down one or both of my tanks, but I do have backup tanking options, so it should be manageable. Let's see how it goes. I really just want to make sure I stay out of that Kyra's way. So I figure I'm going to have a turn or two to set up before I really need to make any plays, so I'm okay burning T-Jess's teleport that early. Just to get stacks up. I want her to have stacks ASAP. Not going to be able to do too much without stacks. And like I said, I'm not really in a rush to make any like sneaky teleport plays or anything on this turn, so I can live without it for a turn. At this point, I'm really just trying to be careful of the range of Leaden's 3C, so he doesn't suck anyone. And also making sure that my back line is safe from the very lengthy range of this Rosalia. So we're pretty much embulkened here and set up and ready to start moving into the center. So I'm going to look for a way to gradually creep into the center as safely as possible. Quaren looks pretty happy to stack up back there too, so the onus is kind of going to be on me to get out of this little hole that I've dug for myself. Rushing Jugler, I'm not really planning on running in or jumping with him right now. There's not a great position for me to jump to. This is more to pressure the mid and maybe make Quaren feel a little bit on his heels. So preparing Jugler's guard there. Now that Ledden has moved this turn, I know I have another turn that I don't need to worry about the 3C, so I'm okay moving Hilda in, prepared to make a play this turn. The other thing to notice is that this Kyra is not guarded anymore. Well, not guarded, period. Jugler doesn't have Magic Guard up. In fact, he doesn't have... Oh yeah, he does have Magic Guard up. Or maybe he doesn't have it up anymore. Does he have it up? What am I looking at here? Looks like he's not guarding Magic. Ledden hasn't even used his 3C yet, so he's not guarding at all. So the bottom line is Kyra is not being protected. I still have my action with T-Jess, and I have Teleport back. So it's now or never. Now's the time to make my play. Ledden can't pull me with his 3C until next round, so we gotta go for it. I give myself just enough range with the Teleport and Act again to pick Kyra. Now, Quaren still has some weapons. They still have Rosalia, they still have Ledden, they still have a dog who can jump. But I don't need to worry about the assassin anymore, which is nice. Act again Jess just to get some damage on that Jugler, get her back a little bit closer to the rest of my team. And that was enough for Quaren, which is an interesting time to resign. They definitely had some weapons left. Take it easy, I agree. I think that was the end of the match, but he still had an opportunity to try some shenanigans with Ledden pulling into the middle. But I just don't think Rosalia would have been enough follow-up to get through, like, one locked-down tank and a Jugler, for example. So, I mean, we could have stretched that out a little bit longer, and it would have basically devolved into standing in the middle while my T-Jess just pelted his team until I won on damage. Probably wouldn't have gone that long, but either way, good match, Quaren Taylor. Ooh, let's cover up the results of the next match so we don't have spoilers, accidental spoilers. Alright, remember not to skip ban pick this time. Kong, keep it together. Alright, so here's game 3 from Sunday. This is against Deathlord, or Lord of Death, whatever you would like to translate your name to. On the Broken Cliffs. First banning Jugler, interestingly. It kind of makes sense. This is definitely... Well, Ares, Burn, King of the Red Moon, Vincent, Kruger, even Lewin. There's definitely a lot of AoE potential here. Lana as well. And first picking Akka. So he does get Vincent. I do get a tank and a healer, which has been my kind of opening gambit for the last couple of rounds. Get another healer. Now, the reason I'm front-loading on healers here is really just because I know with a team like this I'm going to have to weather a storm, and literally my only goal with this ban pick is to be able to take an explosion, heal back up again, like make sure that I can try to keep healing my team and keep them topped up until an opportunity arises for me to throw a punch back. So I'm getting Epsilon out fourth. Really, Epsilon my only DPS. So this is definitely a try to survive team and see what happens. Yeah, Landius, I'm not sure. I mean, he does get a tank out, so he's able to kind of fly around with long leg AoEs and then suck up my hits from my 1 DPS with that Landius. So let's see how this works out. This one, I can already tell I'm super stressed. Even just replaying this, I'm stressed. So I'm going to hang out back here and just try to build up and buff up and get ready to take what's coming at me. So at this point, obviously, I'm concerned about that giant sword dance that's coming in, and I'm trying to keep at least Epsilon out of it. Akka doing her Akka thing. Now I hope here, I was really hoping Bernhardt was not going to push up first on this turn, because I was back here and he could have gotten in and hit pretty much my whole team. So I was able to creep my tanks up just enough to body block the spots where he could have hit my entire team. This at least keeps my Epsilon out of Sword Dance range, just from putting them there. So I don't know if that's going to be enough, but that was kind of my intention. So here's the opening salvo with Vincent. Not too bad, to be honest. Now here comes the burn. Now the reason I went with the full-on 3C there is I wanted to put some damage on Bernhardt, just in the hopes that that would let my no-stacks Epsilon finish him off. If he was full, I wasn't sure if I could, but then again, I guess I did have Attack Blessing, so that would certainly help as well. I think that burn was probably dead regardless. Although maybe not. Maybe I did need him to be hurt. Because that was 25,000 damage with Attack Blessing, no stacks. If that was a totally full stacked Werewolves burn, maybe not. So Lewin comes in with that absolutely ferocious AoE. Just disgusting. Leaving Tiaris with only 666 hit points. Got really lucky to survive that one. Oh. Now I have to sit on this AoE pile, too. So just desperately healing Tiaris back up. Landius getting into position to clearly zone me out of center here. So I just live on this Lewin AoE ground now. I live on the Lewin AoE ground with Akka's Totem. So this is clearly going to be Deathlord walling me totally out of center while the fog starts creeping up. And I need to find a way to get through this wall. All I need is to punch one hole in the wall so that I can get my team through before that fog gets here. So Deathlord not having a healer definitely helps. He can get a little bit of healing from Lewin. Chris just very unsuccessfully crashing into this wolf. Hilda at least was doing decent damage against the Landius. So getting the act again, since time is of the essence. Making sure Epsilon's buff is back up. Getting silenced by that totem. Eating another Vincent AoE here. Now that didn't work. I was really hoping when I used that heal on Tiaris that it would remove her silence. But it didn't. So I got no more healing left this turn. Another desperate poke at Landius here. Now this is a smart move. This makes me pause. Because my plan was obviously to try to smoke this Landius with my Epsilon, but he uses Lewin's little retreat formation on him. So before I attack Landius, he's going to heal a bunch. So that makes me second-guess my plan. And think, well, if Landius is just going to heal back up if I try to punch him, then maybe I should wait and let that buff wear off and punch someone else instead. So instead I'm going to try for the Lewin, but that is not really a great backup plan since Lewin heals before battle as well, and he's just as bulky, if not bulkier. So now I'm really on my heels here. We've got one turn left before the fog is literally on top of us, and I need to get through one of these holes. Or create a hole. Epsilon does take one life off the Landius this turn. And Tiaris is able to finish off that second life. So there is one gap, one little gap for me to climb through. Which is promptly closed by Akka. Fortunately, Flo is able to move over here and chip that Akka down. Barely. Opening up this little forest slot for me to move my Epsilon in. He's able to kill the Lewin, finally, taking out that gigantic Lewin. And now the floodgates are open. I'm able to creep into the mid. And if I'm not getting chewed up by fog, then Deathlord knows I can eventually, slowly reclaim the middle ground and take out his units. Especially since it was just like Vincent left. That one was almost a very successful containing of the zombie horde. It was literally, that was the last turn I had to get in, and I was barely able to just chip a hole. So a real nail-biter of a win. I labeled that one on the battle replays. That one's called Mother Fogger. So we'll scroll down to Mother Fogger. Yeah, I figured people would probably know or guess that these can't be live matches since Apex isn't open. But maybe I should have specified that. At least anyone joining the stream, it'll become pretty immediately apparent that I'm not playing live games. Okay, so the next match we've got is against Leoric. And this is a more traditional looking box, the kind that I've been used to, except we've got Elma here. We've also got Yulia. Licorice, so I guess leaning a little bit more to Princess. We got the dangerous dark duo here, especially for this map, because they both fly. And this is going to be my first try first picking Christiane. And we're both getting Christiane, Rose, and Seal as our first picks. Leoric decides to go with the on-faction Lucretia as his first DPS, and I'm going with Lewin. Since I'm thinking this is probably going to turn into a slugfest in the middle of the map. Lewin's pretty good at those. He is a slugfest specialist. So a couple magical DPS that, with Christiane and Rosen, I'm not super worried about. I should be able to sustain against two mages. Fairly standard single target setups on those. So the game plan is honestly just going to be, I can already tell from this that Leoric's game plan is going to be to get into the middle of the map and occupy it, and hopefully be able to hold out against this team. That's pretty much my strategy as well. Let's see how it goes. Teleporting his healer up. Gets the breeze on T-Jess. Now, one thing I was slightly worried about bringing angels on my Christian is with his 2 mages, it's always a good idea to bring firebrands or archers on at least one of them. Just in case. But he went with Sorks on both, so my angels Christian should be fairly safe from both those mages. I just have to make sure that it's Christian tanking and not Jugler, because they will obliterate Jugler. Now, if it comes to a slugfest in the middle of the map, I think I do have a slight advantage here because Lewin is really good at pounding on tanks. So if I have to, I can lay down AoE in the mid and then just keep hitting Christian. So that's actually going to be my first opening move, is to get into position. Lewin's still being tanked, and I'm putting down that terrain. So this terrain is super dirty. It lasts for a long time. It lasts for a few turns. It removes buffs, which has the possibility of removing some important buffs from tanks. And it just does damage all the time. So getting that, filling the middle of the map with my terrain is just an extra tiny little advantage that I can give myself. I was just kind of prodding Christian there because I wanted to see what T-Jess could do to her, and the answer, as expected, not too much. Well, thank you. The matches have already happened, but I appreciate the good luck anyway. I'll take that good luck with me into tomorrow's matches. Now, Leoric has pretty much fully occupied the middle now, so I'm going to have to start that chipping away with Lewin strategy. I clocked my AoE, so I'm using it again. Now, this is where those Lewin AoEs come in handy, because we notice something different and unusual here. She's not guarding anymore. So, the terrain must have stripped her guard. And she can't use her buff again for another 3 turns. Now, I'm not sure if Leoric noticed that and was hoping that I wouldn't make a play at this, or just didn't notice, but Florentia's totally out of guard now. So I'm able to take advantage of that with T-Jess. Pick her off at long range. That's not the end of the world for Leoric, because he also has Rosenseal. So losing out on 1 healer and having full map control, not too bad, but I think Leoric knew that the Lewining was inevitable. The longer he stood there, the more Lewin was going to punch Christian, and it was not gonna go well for him. So a nice quick match. Definitely quicker than I thought that match was going to be. That, to me, looked like a turn 10 slugfest, so glad to get that one out of the way. So thanks for the match there, Leoric. Alright, let's move on to our next match that we've got lined up. Alright, we've got one against Apex Addict, the famous Apex Addict. The Scourge of the Summit der Langrisser. And Apex Addict has his traditional Apex Addict box of rush units here. My opinion on the new characters on the Chinese server. I think they're interesting. I don't think they're going to be really meta-dominant like Lucretia or Watham. But I think they're going to be the kind of characters that, like, people who really like them and want to play them can design a kind of box around them and put them to good use. I don't think they're going to be like a must-have for everyone to put in their box, but I definitely think they're going to be the kind of characters that people will be able to take advantage of if they build for them. I haven't fully decided if I'm going to be one of the people who does that yet. Not 100% sold on their design, which is a big part of whether I want to play a character or not. SP Cherie is frequently banned, but I don't think she's a 100% necessary ban. It really depends on your box or like the characters that you're deploying. Like, there are a lot of units that Cherie can't kill, so if those are the units you're playing, you don't really need to worry about banning her. But if you're playing characters that she can kill, then you want to ban her, obviously. So Apex Addict has a lot of legs here. He's got a Cavalry Jugler, which I didn't know at the time. He's got Ares, Helena, Leon, like, just a lot of characters who can charge in. And he's banning my Hilda first. So I banned his mobilizers there, knowing that this was going to be a box that tries to really get the jump on me. I do get a tank at least. And I do get a healer. And he does get Elwyn and Ares. I get Elwyn too, which helps with zoning his rush team a little bit. Like, I can use Elwyn if he tries to overcommit a little bit too much with one of these characters. Getting some more tank support. Another thing this lets me do is lock down one of his units if he charges in. Usually, players will go in with someone like Ares and then try to get back out or something like that, but Jugler can kind of pin units like that down. So I have a half-decent counter rush team here. Like, if he can get through my tanks, that's a problem. But I do have a couple units that can, like, pick off his rushers, so we'll see how that goes. I am going to have to kind of be patient and hang back and see how he decides to open this match, though. Have I met that Sigma 2.0 version, Werner? Oh yeah, he's in a lot of Apex boxes. He's definitely pretty good. So, this is a single target Ares. I'm trying to position it in a way... I mean, I know he's going to smoke my team. I know he's going to reorganize my position. So I'm just trying to get ready to try to survive that however I can. Who would I say is almost always first or second ban? It really depends. There are a lot of assassins in this meta currently, Chris, so, like, there are lots of people who are banning Werner and Epsilon. Watham is a pretty frequent first ban. Sometimes people are still first banning Rosenseal or other anti-AoE characters if they're planning on playing an AoE rush team, so it kind of depends, but there are a lot of those. I see Epsilon first banned a lot, although that might be happening less and less now as people get a feel for what he can and can't kill. Oh, Breeze on that Elwyn, too. Okay, so Watham's going to come in with his 3C. And then AoE. Trying to get some of the heal block off there with that mass heal. So that I can heal again this turn. He AoEs me again. And I'm again trying to strip some of those debuffs off before the next wave comes in. So we get a Vincent Explosion next. Jugler helps a little bit with that, but not too much healing going on right now, actually. I'm going to go ahead and bolt with my Elwyn and get out of this death trap back here. I see the opportunity to charge in and kill his Elwyn. He does not have a revive because he's too close to his teammates. Now that's probably a death sentence for my Elwyn because he has Ares and Leon back here. But I think that was a worthy trade of just slowing down the rush. Because now Apex Addict decides to take care of this Elwyn behind his lines instead of continuing to pound on the rest of my team. So Epsilon does have a stack up since there was a death down here, so he's able to take out the Watham. And meanwhile, Apex Addict, the rest of his team is back here behind the sword. So I'm able to regroup a little bit up here. As I was saying during ban pick, I used Jugler to kind of lock this Vincent down so he can't regroup with his team or do anything sneaky like run into the fog for an extra death explosion. It is a Swordsmith medal on my Elwyn, yeah. And with his full-on head rush kind of broken up there, I still have my tank and a healer and an Epsilon and a Jugler, and he's down to really just Leon and Ares back here, who've already used their skills. He figures that's it. I would have been able to get back, set back up, and healed back up, and remove some of those debuffs, and basically reset the match, and it would have been a 4-on-2 or a 4-on-3 at that point, so that was pretty much over. My thoughts on SP Dehart. I think after his SP class, and after the new fairy units come out, he can be half decent. He can be half decent as an assassin that does a specific job, like if you set him up correctly. But the problem with him is still that there's so many other really good assassins. So building an SP unit is expensive. And are you going to want to sink all that investment into an SP Dehart assassin when you have all these other assassins at your fingertips? So, like, I think in and of itself, he's a good unit, but you have to measure it against all the other good assassins we have available to us. I'm probably still going to build him just because, like you, I like the look of him. Like, I like the kind of design of the unit. Sure, there's going to be a new soldier type coming out in... I'm not sure if it's going to be in the next batch of new soldiers for Global. But they're getting... it's basically kind of like a sorceress type unit. And SP Dehart can equip them. And they kind of shore up some of his innate weakness still that his SP class still has. It's just a good troop for him. Without good troops, he still kind of sucks in his SP class, but that's a good troop for him. So we'll have to see once all that stuff comes out. Like once SP Dehart comes here and all the soldiers and the gear that he needs. So he can be good is the bottom line. He can be good, but so can like the other 5 assassins that are good already. Alright, the next match we've got queued up is against PDHM 24. Personally, I'd like to see SP Ledden, just because... I mean, I still don't think I would use him, but I'm a big fan of the original Warsong game. So I have a soft spot for Ledin and all those like old first-gen heroes. So Ledin being good again would be nice. I'd like that. But I don't know. I probably wouldn't use him. No, SP Luna is not a confirmed thing yet. I mean, she probably will come eventually. So this is another game where I'm getting Chris and a healer first, and then picking up whatever stray DPS I can afterwards. So I was able to get Lewin, and then fortunately right after that, a buff for Lewin. So PDHM is stacking up with a healer and 2 tanks, although I think a little bit more threatening DPS than me. Lewin can definitely beat on tanks. My Elwyn's not going to be able to do much against a Hilda. He's really just there to buff Lewin. Similarly, my T-Jess is not going to be able to do too much against these 2 tanks. I want to make sure that I can survive Hilda's Thorns. Like, I don't want to kill myself with T-Jess. I'm going to need T-Jess to still be alive. And the other tricky thing is going to be making sure that my units survive against this Kyra. So I've got an uphill battle here in this one. I actually agree that I think the original R-tier Jess would be perfect for getting an SP class, just because she's one of the most important characters in the series, and she's like an R-tier character. That's ridiculous. The only reason I don't think they're going to be in a huge rush to make an SP Jessica is precisely because they've released all the other Jessica alts. So we have Young Jessica, we have Tensei Jessica. They don't really need to be in a huge rush to give us SP Jessica. Any good advice? Oh yeah, just play as much as you can and practice, practice, practice. Even if you're losing a lot, it's really important to get a lot of band pick sessions under your belt so you can get a feel for the repercussions of what you picking certain characters does for you in a match. If you find that you keep getting like hedged out of important DPS, then you know that you can change that. And that knowledge only really comes with experience. So really that's my best tip for anyone playing Apex, is just play tons. Kyra looking like she can steamroll here. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if she can kill Lewin. Probably. She is on sorceresses. But I'm going to be in Christian Aura. And he has a faction buff. So Kyra being able to kill or not being able to kill my units is going to be the make or break for this game. I do believe that SP Leon is high on the priority list. I think that Leon and Ledin are probably the 2 SSR characters that are probably the highest on the list. Also because they both did very well on the voting event that they had in China. So I wouldn't be too surprised. Alright, here we go. Kyra's coming after my Jess. And Jess barely survives that, even with broken Sorks. That's got to be Christian Aura OP. So I'm going to hop in with Lewin, throw some terrain down. Ooh, I know Kyra's going to have another chance to come in at this Jess, so I have to immediately jump in and heal her back up to full. I know she can survive the hit if she's at 100%. So I blow Rosenseal's 3C to get her back up to 100%. The Lucretia, not super threatening to the Christian. Jess actually doing decent damage to the enemy Christian there. Alright, so we're gonna see. We're gonna see. I don't think Kyra's second attack can kill. If the first one didn't kill, I don't think the second one will. She's trying again, though. Ooh, it was actually closer. It was actually closer, but she didn't kill. With Faceless, I do think she would have got that kill. I do with Faceless. Assuming PDHM's Faceless are built, which I know this player is pretty advanced, so I'm assuming Faceless is going to be built. Okay, this changes things. Now Kyra has no guard ignore skills for the next couple turns. I guess they could use the puppet to refresh her cooldowns. Which might not be a bad idea, but they can still control mid. They have 2 tanks, they have a strong healer, and they can keep poking and chipping at me with these DPS. For my part, I am pretty much going to be taking advantage of the fact that Kyra's not a threat anymore to hang out in Christian's zone of tanking and just pile as much damage as I can on them. So on that note, T-Jess is going to take another pot shot at this Christian and takes her first life. The 3C from Lucretia, not a super big threat to my Overlord badge Christian. So Lewin able to throw down some more AoE here. I know Kyra's going to heal that, but she's not going to be able to keep up healing the entire team from that. Time to start bringing Elwyn down, since he can't be sniped through guard. I don't mind him being close to the rest of my team, as long as he's got a tank working for him. I'm not worried about that Ram either, since I have Rosensteel stacks to prevent me from the debuff. So T-Jess, able to use her ice to melt off one of the lives off Hilda, and both of his tanks have now lost 1 life. Now Lewin going in for a big punch, and that is enough to kill Christian. This is what I love about Lewin. He's just such a big, scary monster. Like that 2C hits so hard. And PDHM figures that was over. Kyra was down pretty much until next turn. His tanks were all pretty much toast. And on my next turn, I was going to be able to basically finish them off and get Elwyn into the action. So really good game, PDHM. Kind of surprised your Kyra didn't take out my T-Jess there, but that whole game would have been very different if you'd gotten that first kill. Yeah, Lewin's a machine. Alright, let's put up my little Heidi secret screen here. This is a Blood Pact Lewin. Mine's on Blood Pact. Lewin is nasty. He can be underrated, he can be overrated too. He can be pretty dead against magic, and he can be hard to get a buff for. But he's pretty scary. So the next match we've got on the go is versus AlexDK. Oh yeah, I recommend Lewin. He's an interesting character that can fit in a lot of boxes, but one thing about him, he's kind of like Jugler in the sense that he's very demanding to build. Like, you want hit points and attack and defense on him, so he's hard to enchant. It's hard for some people to kill Lewin. It's fairly easy for magic DPS to kill him, yeah. As long as he's not being guarded. Like, if you see a game where people are relying on Lewin as a tank, he does have a 1C, like a passive 1-range guard skill. But yeah, you can basically just hose him down with magic. So AlexDK has an interesting box here. He's got Sophia. Illustrial, which I decided to first ban just because her mobility is super oppressive and I don't like it. So we got rid of her, which kind of narrows this box down to something a little bit more normal looking. And it looks like we're going to have a very similar ban pick here again. Going Christian, healer, and actually just like last game, my opponent is going third pick Lucretia, I'm going third pick Lewin, so I'm going to be very happy to get Lewin out here. And I still have access to both of Lewin's buffers as well. And this is kind of another situation where the enemy has 2 magical DPS against Christian and Rosen combo, so it's pretty hard to get through that. The only downside of this kind of setup is it does tend to lead to slugfest in the middle of the map type battles, which a lot of players find boring, and I kind of find boring. So we'll see if Alex's 2 mages are able to cut through my Christian. I do only have 1 healer in this match. Yeah, you're right. The most, this is going to be another Lucretia and Tejas versus Lewin matchup. I mean, the advantage that I have here is that Lewin can actually hurt Christian. And his troops are infantry, so he's not like a full Lancer unit. The troops are doing a lot of work here. That would actually be pretty interesting, wouldn't it, if they had different like game objectives, like capture the flag style or King of the Hill style in Apex matches. So again, Jugler is kind of brought along just as a buff bot, which is kind of silly, but I don't want him tanking because those mages will destroy him. So I want him hiding with my tank and buffing Lewin. Lewin gets the AoE off. No clock that time. But it does plaster the whole middle of the map with these annoying tiles for 3 turns, so always worth it. And that's just getting a pot shot. I kind of gambled a little bit bringing the Firebrands. I thought that Christiane might go with Angels, but she went with Guardian Infantry, which is smart. That's the right troop to bring against my 1 Lucretia. So the Firebrands not being super, super helpful there. Yeah, can you imagine playing a King of the Hill style match and your opponent just brings like 3 tanks and 2 healers? I suppose some games like this, where you're occupying the middle and keeping the opponent out, kind of end up being that kind of game. Oh yeah, there are definitely lots of options for getting rid of those tiles, like Sage of the Trees, Helena can get rid of tiles quite nicely. Enemy Lewins, since there are so many Lewins running around. Alright, so I'm creeping Christian 1 spot ahead, which will let Lewin move forward 1 spot and start doing his short range single target attacks. Enough to eat 1 life of that Christian. Now, this is interesting. This is the first opponent that I played with my Christian setup. Usually you'd bring, like, Cleanse instead of the 3C if you're assuming that the enemy has Overlord's Badge, because the 3C debuffs won't work against Overlord's Badge. But Cleanse is sneaky, because after battle it dispels 2 buffs. So much like Lewin's Terrain, Cleanse has the opportunity to remove your guard. So I had to double check myself after getting cleansed. I do still have my guard up, thankfully. And actually, let's take this opportunity. It looks like Lewin dispelled Christiane's guard, so she won't be able to cast her faction buff and tank skill again for another turn. So that's something to look out for. Especially since he just teleported Lucretia out of guard range. Christiane's not guarding. Lucretia does have access to her revive, though. That T-Just Fireball not doing anything. Alright, so I'm going to try to take this opportunity to kill that Lucretia. Firebrand's not quite enough to finish off her second life, but I do have my puppet, so the puppet's going to go in. And oh no! Also not finish off. Lucretia lives against puppet with 51 hit points. Oh, that would have been perfect to be able to just take her out. Nope, she's live. Alright. This, I did kind of trap him in like a trolley problem kind of gambit. So he had two things he could do there. He could either get Christiane's guard back up ASAP, or try to heal this Lucretia. So if he didn't guard, even if he did heal her, I could just like attack it with Lewin, I guess. But he got the guard back up. Unfortunately, I do have Jugler's AoE still in my back pocket, so I'm going to do that now. And that's able to finish her off. So just taking advantage of that tiny little window of opportunity of Lewin's terrain disabling that guard just in the nick of time, and picking off one unit that was no longer being guarded. Now, his team's looking pretty beat up. Christiane has already lost her first life. I'm not in mid yet, but I still have all my weapons available to me. So I think that the table's tilted in my favor here. And all these mages just desperately trying to take little tiny chips out of that Christiane. Not able to take that second life yet after a couple of attempts. Just desperately hanging on to keep that Christiane healthy. Now I do out-damage him by like 5 or 6 times here, but if I can't get into the middle, that doesn't really matter. Alright, finally took the second life off that Christiane. At this point, there's nothing Alex is going to be able to do because I'll be able to one-shot the rest of his team. So that was it for that game, but very good game, Alex. Very exciting slugfest in the middle. A continuing theme of Lewin-based slugfests. So I just have one more match to show tonight from the ones that I gathered from last Sunday. And this one's interesting for one, maybe 2 reasons. The first reason is because it's against our good friend AlexDK again. Back-to-back, loading in against AlexDK. He did first ban Christiane this time. Now, he didn't know this was me, obviously, but maybe from the look of the box, I don't know, I have a pretty standard-looking box, so it's kind of hard to tell that this is me right away. But he didn't want to fight Christiane again after that last match. I get Hilda out, at least. And Rosen. So, still going with my old 1-2 punch of main tank, main healer. And still going with good old faithful Lewin. 3rd pick. Now, he did ban Elwyn, one of Lewin's buffers, but I still, of course, have my Jugler here who I've been using as a just hide behind the tank faction buffer. It's ridiculous, so ridiculous to use Jugler as a faction buffer, but there you go. We do have an interesting Bozal pick here into Rosenseal. So that's still dangerous, but it's not as threatening as Bozal can be. So it did prompt me to opt for a second healer rather than Jugler right away, just in case I need to keep my team topped up from everything that Bozal can do. But he does pick himself into kind of a corner here where Bozal ends up being literally his only DPS. So he's got 3 healers, a tank, an anti-mage tank, and a Bozal against a Rosenseal, another healer, an AoE reactive tank, and a Lewin. So it's basically going to be Lewin against Bozal desperately trying to chip some debuffs on this team. Like I said, it's definitely possible to overwhelm Rosenseal's stacks, but it's going to be hard as long as I stay on top of my healing. So we're going to see what Bozal can do here. Yeah, the triple healer setup might keep his tank alive in mid against Lewin. If it prevents Lewin, as long as Lewin can't, like, one-shot the tank, then maybe she can just stand there blocking me out and getting totally wailed on for 12 turns. That might have been his strategy. So he is using the act again right away to get Christiane right up into the action. Try to lay claim to mid here. I'm going to do the same thing. So I can get Rosen into the mix. Oh, I'd like to get Lewin right there. That would help gain some control over the middle of the map, and it also plants Lewin right beside this tank, who I'm going to basically just be plastering that tank with Lewin hits for the rest of this match. So let's see if I have the opportunity to get him in there. Oh yeah, I move right into Christiane's face, and then I get off this AoE just to lay down a nice little base layer of tiles in the middle of the map. Oh, and I clocked it as well. So I'm going to have more of that delicious Lewin AoE waiting for him. If he wants to come into the middle of the map, he has to skate over all that junk. So Lewin is buffed now. And let's see. Oh, Tiaris moves in and claims this other top spot, so I'm actually getting into the middle sooner than he is. Okay, Bozal is able to chew through all of Rosenseal's stacks there, so I'm going to come in and set them all back up again by using her 3C here. Now, I'm still not out of the woods, because as you know, Bozal has his... Well, I guess I'm out of the woods now. But Bozal has his 3C available again right away, so he could have stripped all those stacks down again. But then he has another turn of cooldown, so I would have been able to gradually get my debuff immunity stacks back. Plus Jugler's there doing some passive healing. I already had control of the middle of the map. And from having just fought me in the last game, AlexDK knows what can happen when you have a Lewin standing directly on your Christiane's toes. Probably didn't want a protracted battle for the middle against those odds. So another game down against AlexDK. So thank you so much for those matches last weekend, Alex. It looks like we have similar playstyle, and I just ended up leaning on Lewin a little harder than you ended up leaning on your selected win cons. But yeah, we were both going for the middle of the map and going hard. So I just came out on top barely this week. But maybe next week we'll run into each other a couple more times. Oh, that's an interesting idea, the most dope. Someone who prevents Yeah, interesting. That I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, because that is something that is kind of a scourge of tanks and stuff now, is being able to have like all of your buffs stripped and removed. And I think another potential mechanic that they could maybe use is someone who can somehow prevent people from being able to ignore guard. Now, I'm not sure if that would be like a tank or a healer or like someone with an aura, but it would kind of be interesting if it was like, units who are directly adjacent to this unit can't be hit through guard or something like that. Obviously, they would have to balance it, but that's another kind of mechanic that's really central to the game that they could kind of flip on their head if they wanted to. Yo, YouTube is just on fire with the spammers lately. YouTube spammers. Okay, my friends, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 Apex replays that we went through. I know it looks like I selectively chose to play the games that I won. The fact of the matter is, the games that I lost ended up just being like really boring games. Like, just going into the middle and losing on damage. Like, nothing really interesting or cool happening. So, I mean, I could show my losses. I'm definitely not averse to showing my losses. As you know, I've definitely showed my fair share of losses in the past, whether in replays or in live games or in tournaments. In tournaments, I pretty much only get losses. But it just so happened that the more like interesting games and the kind of things that I wanted to highlight, like the power of Lewin, for example, those happened to happen in my wins. So sorry if that made me look super biased. Tried not to make that the case. But rather than go on with some other just random administrative cleanup here, I think I'll leave it at that, with a few interesting little replays from last weekend. Hopefully after this weekend, I'll have some more interesting replays next week. Like I mentioned, I'm not going to stream them live just because it is a crippling disadvantage with the distraction. So I'll try to really buckle down in my quiet little studio and focus on the games live as they're happening, and then we can come back and review some of the more entertaining ones sometime next week. So thank you everyone for watching. Thanks for all your support and encouragement. Thanks for coming out to the chat. Had a lively discussion in tonight's chat. And I hope you all have great luck in your own Apex matches this weekend for everyone who's still climbing. Take care, everyone. Happy Langrissing.